Hey everybody, this is Bob from Medtechify, and today we are going to be gamifying glide apps. Now, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you already know that I've created a video series on gamifying glide, so why recreate the content? And that's because I created that video series over a year ago, and Glide has come out with some pretty cool features since then. So it warrants a reboot. But in this video series, I'm going to be showing you some new tips, tricks, some advanced logic to make your glide app truly efficient and shine. So, without further ado, Gamifying Glide Apps, Episode 1. So to get started, we're going to head over to go.glideapps.com and we're going to sign in with a Google account we want to use to be the admin for this app. Afterwards, we're going to click on New App, and we see that we have two options now. We have Google Sheets or Glide Tables. There are drawbacks and benefits to using either of these. Google Sheets is a little laggier than using a Glide Table, but it allows for copying and pasting data, sharing that data with somebody else if they want to go ahead and help you out with the app. It also works for bulk import of content as well, and it's a familiar environment, right? Glide Tables, super efficient, you have great performance, and it allows you to link Glide Tables between apps, which is awesome, but you can't directly import data or copy and paste data quite yet. So I'm gonna start with a Google Sheet, but I might be using Glide Tables along the way. Now, before I hit continue here, I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I have a sheet set up. So I'm gonna go over here to New Tab, do sheets.new, and then name this Gamification version 2. All right, before I import this spreadsheet as part of the app, I'm gonna get it set up a little bit. The very first thing I do when I create this spreadsheet is always create the Users tab, right? So because I'm gonna have my users sign into this sheet, I wanna make sure this is all set up and ready to go. Now, to have a user profile in an app, you need to have three basic criteria. You need to have a name. In this case, it's gonna be the username. You need to have an email. So I'll say email here. And I'm gonna type actually everything in camel case, but use whatever denotation you'd like, right? So email, username, and then I'm gonna have their profile picture, avatar, something like that. Now, in addition to this, I'm gonna be asking for a few things along the way, things that I already know I'm gonna have be associated to this user. For example, their class, their guild. You could ask for their date of birth if you'd like. If you have student ID numbers, you could do something like that. And then part of the onboarding process, I'm gonna be asking for a timestamp when the profile was complete. So I'm gonna say something like profile completed on. I always freeze my first row, and that's just coming over here above the 1, finding a little hand icon, click and drag down below the 1 to freeze that first row. And again, the benefit of that is because if I scroll down to like the 300th row, I still see my headers on top, and it just lets me see a nice visualization that this is the header row and everything else below is the data. I think that's good for now for the users, but since I am asking for class information, I'm gonna go ahead and create a sheet called classes. And part of the classes here, I'm gonna have the class name, maybe an image for the class, maybe a description, and then maybe some stats. And I already have these stats available. I'm gonna go ahead and just drag them on in. Again, this is the benefit of using a Google Sheet, is that you can copy and paste information, right? I wouldn't be able to do this with the Glide Table quite yet. Freeze my first row. All right, so I'm gonna have 4 classes: Warrior, Hunter, Mage, and Healer. Each have their own different types of stats. I have an image associated with them and a description. Okay, last thing I do here for the Users tab is like to pop my name into the email address here. That way, when I go to start the app, then it already recognizes me as being signed into the app. This is basically mocking that I've signed in. All right, so now that these 2 tabs have been completed, I'm gonna head back to the Glide app and then choose Google Sheets, continue. I'm gonna look for that spreadsheet gamification version 2. It should be right on top. Hit select, and Glide's gonna do its best to create this app for me. Now you see that I already have a users tab here and a classes tab. I might show the classes tab at some point, right? For now, I'm just going to drag it to the menu. And then now you see that I have a little menu icon appears here and with my classes, and I'll touch that screen a bit later. Okay, so today what we're gonna do is we're gonna create our onboarding experience that's eventually gonna create that user profile, and along the way, they'll select which class they'd like to be as part of our gamification experience. So the first thing we have to do when we dive into our app here is set up user profiles. It's always the first thing I do because so much more of the app, when we go to develop it, hinges on the fact that we have user profiles set up. So to start that off, we're gonna come over to the gear at the top here. This brings open our settings panel on the right-hand side, and from here we're going to select privacy. For public sign-in, we're going to switch it from public to public with email. Setting it to public with email forces the user to sign into the app with an email address. Now, there are two ways to authenticate into a Glide app. The first way is just via their email address. So they'll type in their email address will receive a PIN, they type the PIN into the app, and then they're in. The second way is to authenticate with Google. And so if you want to authenticate with Google, just check the box, allow sign in with Google account. Now, the one caveat to all of this is that all free and basic apps anonymize the email when the user signs in, meaning it's going to create a fake email address, and that's what's going to be populated in your Google Sheet. You're not going to see the actual user's email address. If you want to collect the actual user's email address, you would just select collect real user email addresses here, but you see that it's going to force you to upgrade your app to a pro app. There are so many benefits to upgrading to your pro app, and if you want to save a little bit of money, you can pay yearly. It's only $24 a month at that case, but I know that budgets are tight, so if you can't afford a public pro app, just know that you're going to have to have anonymous emails in your app. Okay, so that was step one, just making sure that we set our privacy to public with email, so our users are actually signing into the app. Okay, the next thing we have to do is define the user profile sheet. So that way Glide knows which sheet in your Google Sheets is gonna house the user profile information. Okay, to do that, it's a little bit hidden, but it's completely necessary. What you're gonna do is come over here to the layout view of your app. You're gonna click the menu icon in the app, and then click somewhere here in the top left corner, either the avatar or the email address that you see here. And then you'll see that this user profile screen appears, and on the right-hand side, it's gonna ask you which sheet should house the user profile sheet. So I'm gonna click Sheet, click Users, and you see it's gonna pop in some information for me automatically. It found that username is name, email is email, and profile picture is image. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna hit Close. Okay, and now our user profile sheet has been set up. Okay, the next thing we have to do is create our onboarding experience. So to do that, I'm gonna create a new tab. So on the left-hand panel over here next to tabs, we see a little plus button. I'm gonna click on that add. See, it creates a new tab for me. I can click to rename it, or I can rename it over here on the right-hand side, either place. I'm gonna call this just welcome. Okay, whatever you name the tab, that's what's gonna appear at the top here. So I like to show welcome as our onboarding tab, but if you want to, you could say something else, right? Okay, and this tab is going to be a details screen because we're gonna create the components that should be part of this welcome experience. And the first thing we have to do on this welcome screen is make sure that the person who is viewing this screen is the signed in user, right? So I'm gonna come over here to Options, Filter, and we're gonna filter where the email is the signed in user, like so. All right, so now this tab is being filtered by the signed in user, which means if I sign in, I see my stuff, and if somebody else signs in, they see their stuff. All right, and from here, we're just gonna start asking them some questions to fill out their profile. Okay, there's a variety of ways you can do this, but the number one component you're gonna use is the text entry component. Okay, so I'm gonna look back at my sheet here. I see that I have to enter in the email. That's already been filled in for me. So they're gonna choose their username, they're gonna upload a picture, they're gonna choose which class they belong to. Just those three things for now. Right, so if I want to display some sort of information here at the top, I can create some text components. I could do something like custom and then choose looks like you're new here. Okay, I can choose what kind of headline I want. I can even give them a nice little waving emoji. Hello. Like that. Okay, and then I can add another text component here underneath that says something like, let's complete your profile. I'll make that a smaller headline. Okay, I could have optionally done this using rich text component as well. To show you what that looks like, I'm gonna come over here to rich text. I'm gonna copy this line here from the text I already did. And in rich text, I can come over here to custom. And this allows you to use Markdown language. If you're not familiar with Markdown language, get used to it because it's super fast and super handy. Basically, it gives you all of the WYSIWYG editor information like bolding, italicizing, making things header, underlining things, right? Just using characters. So headline 3, for example, is 3 pound signs or hashtags followed by whatever text you want. Okay. Then right underneath it, I can do a headline 4 with the let's complete your profile. See that? So I get the same experience, but I only use one component instead of 2. So now I can trash those top 2 components and I get the same experience here. So learn Markdown, it makes your life so much easier. All right, so now that I've prompted them to complete their profile, let's actually have some fields where they can complete their profile. I'm gonna add a text entry component in order to capture their username. And I'm going to name this, what shall we call you? For the placeholder, I could say something like, enter a username. If you want to have a set of minimum length or a maximum length, you can. That way your users aren't going to spam your usernames, right? So minimum length, 1, maybe 2. And then max length, give them like 25 characters, something like that, right? And then we also want to check to make sure that there have been no other users of this name, right? So to do that, I'm going to come over here to our data editor. And what we're going to do is we're going to check against any other username that already exists. All right, to do that, I'm going to actually create a fake email address here. I'm just going to say test@email.com. And I'm going to give them a username of username. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a relation column that's going to relate the username to all of the usernames to check against if it exists, right? So to do that, I click up the plus button here. I'm going to call this rel usernames. Rel stands for relation. And here I'm going to relate the username to the user's username field and basically relating it back to itself. Okay, and then I'm going to match multiple. All right. So if a username already exists, that means that if someone were to type in the word username, you see how both are named username, how I get 2 results here. And so this number of having more than one match is what I can use to determine if a username already exists. To capture the number of matches, we need to add a roll-up column. So I'm going to add a plus button here, and I'm going to call this count usernames. Column type will be a roll-up, and the configuration will be the rel usernames, and then capture maybe the email address of count. Okay. And you see here that it found 2 of them. So this is the number I'm going to use that say, hey, if the number is 2 or more, that means the username already exists. Okay. You see that if I change this username to anything else, like username 4, you see now only 1 exists. Okay, I'm going to delete that altogether for now. Head back to my app. Okay, what should we call you? And so now I'm going to add in a hint component, some hint text here. The mood will be a warning. The title will be, oh no. And the text will be, that username already exists. Please select another. Okay. Now this text should only appear if that count is 2 or greater. So under the options, under visibility, I'm going to choose where count usernames is greater than or equal to 2. All right, so let's test that out. If I type in anything like username, it doesn't find the match. But when I choose username, because it already exists, then I see the message. I could pick something different like username1, right? But in this case, we now have a username field. Cool. Okay, we also want to capture the profile picture. So to do that, we're going to do an image picker. So search for the word image picker. Okay, this should write to the profile picture field, and the title should be upload an avatar or profile picture. I'll let them use the camera or photo roll. Okay, and the last thing we're going to have them do is select a class. Now there's 2 ways to do this. We can do the easy, boring way, or we can do the more advanced but fun way. I'll show you both. The easy, quick and dirty way is just to add a choice component. So I can click over here on the component list, type the word choice. Here it is. My sheet values are going to be the classes sheet. The values will be the class name, right? And then the column will write to the class column here. And so now, and we can make it required. So now they can pick one of the 4 classes, and then they can have a button that says like complete profile. We'll do that in a second. But you see that with the choice component, you don't really get a feel for what these 4 classes' strengths are, right? Maybe they want to evaluate what these 4 classes are before making an informed decision. So if you want that, then the advanced way, which is a lot more fun, is to add a link to screen button. Let me show you what that looks like. So instead of this choice component, I'm going to add a button. And this button instead will say, select a class. Now, we want this button to direct them to the classes sheet, but we don't want to just have them visit the default classes sheet like this, because maybe we want to save this for just like a directory of all the classes. We want to go to like a specific like class selector experience. So for that, we need to use a link to screen action. So on our button component, the action will be a link to screen. And this link to screen will be the classes sheet. And here we're going to name it select a class. I usually name the title for the link to screen the same thing as the button. So that way when they push the button, now we are on a link to screen of the classes. But what's nice is that this is a different experience than just the view details or the tab experience. And what might be kind of fun is to use Glide's swipe feature. So I'm going to go over here to swipe. And you see that when I do that, I now get these swipeable cards. They can swipe through the different classes and make an informed decision about which they want to view, which ones they want to be, and from there they can select. So to do that is a little bit of a complicated setup in the backup, but it's super doable. The first thing I want to do is get rid of this search box at the top. So I'm going to click on inline list, and under options, uncheck show search bar. Okay, the next thing I want to do is set the swipe condition here. So you see the data says save last swipe. We need this in order for them to actually be able to swipe through the cards. You see, until I do that, I'm not clicking anything. I can't click and drag, right? So I'm going to come over here to my data view. You can see you can go to the data editor on here, or I can come over here to the data section next to screen, and I can add components, or sorry, I can add data columns right from here. So I need to add a user-specific date column, because that's what the swipe layout requires. So I'm going to hit the plus button. I'm going to add a date time column. I'm going to make it user-specific. It's going to prompt me to add a row ID. That's fine, add row ID. And I'm going to call this swiped, and then done. And so now, back on my screen, I'm gonna go to inline list, and the save last swipe will now write to that swiped date time column. And see, now once I've done that, now I can swipe through my cards. All right, let's make this look a little prettier. So the title is fine. Maybe you want to make it a card layout like this, or you can make it like a profile layout like that. Note this will be circular. It'll kind of cut off, but completely up to you. So maybe the card layout's nice, or you can just do an image. So kind of play around with it and see what you'd like here. Make it a one-to-one image, maybe make it inset. Okay, and you see that it has basically the same layout here without all of the overlay. So if you like the overlay, go with the title component. Okay, otherwise you can just use the image here. All right, from here, maybe I want to show the title, so I can use a text component. And here's the class name. Let's make it nice and bold in the center. Make it bigger. Bigger. There we go. Mage. Give them a description. So I'm just going to duplicate this text and make that the description. But let's make it regular and place it underneath the class name. Cool. Maybe make it smaller. Footnote. That's pretty small. Let's do small. And then lastly, let's do a basic table to show the stats. So here's my basic table. And I have three stats. I have attack, armor, and spell. So I'll do attack, armor, and spell. And you see how that automatically fills it in for me. And I see how it's kind of running down the card. I don't like that. So I'm going to make my image a bit smaller here. So instead of doing a 1-to-1 image, maybe I'll make it like a 3-to-2 image, but then I'm going to show the whole image like that. All right, so this looks good. So they can swipe through. Look at that. That looks cool. All right, and then the last thing is to have them be able to select this class and then go back to the onboarding experience, right? So to do this, we need a compound action, and we need to have a little bit of a data set up in the back end. So from here, I'm going to go to the data table. This brings me right to the classes sheet. And here I need to make a relation back to the user sheet, so that way when they select or push a button, it's going to select the value of the class and then bring you back. So to make a relation from a list of options that have nothing to do with the user profile to the user profile, we need to use a template column to grab the user's email address. So from here, I'm going to add in a template column. I'm going to call it user email. I'm going to type the word or letter E, where E is replaced with the user email. So see how you see user down here? If you don't see user down here, that means you didn't set up your user profile experience correctly. Go back to the beginning of this video and complete that. All right, so email. Now you see I have my user email in here. Hit done. And now I can make a relation. So I'm going to say rel to user. This will be a relation column where I'm going to relate the user email to the user sheet email. And now you see I have a relation to the user of whoever signed in. Nice. All right, so from here, I can simply add a button to capture the class name, write it to the user profile via that relation we just created, and then navigate back to the user profile. So it's a three-part action that we can use with a single button. So with this button here at the bottom, that fits perfectly, I love it. We're going to say choose this class. All right, and this action will be a new action. So we're going to create our own custom action here. Trial by fire in this first video, I love it. All right, so what we need to do is we need to first set the value of the class column with the class name. So we need to use the set column action, right? This set column action, we're going to be using this a whole lot this video series, so get used to it. Set columns is by far one of the most powerful new actions that Glide has released. It basically lets you edit any column's value in the current sheet or in a different sheet via a relation. So we're going to do set columns, and we're not going to set any columns in this item, which means this row for the class name, right? But instead, we're going to set it using the relation. So when I select relation to user, you see I now have all of my user profile columns, including class. And so we're going to write the class name to the user class column. All right. Okay, after that, maybe we show a little notification. So we can do show notification. And we could say class selected. Okay. If you want to get fancy and put in a little sound, we can do that too. There's a variety of sounds to choose from. They're all okay, but alert's kind of nice. Okay, and then we're going to go back a screen, right? So we'll go back. Where's my go back? Go back. Boom. All right, we're going to name this select class and then hit save. All right, so when I hit save, it's going to do this 4-part action where it's going to set the class name in the user profile screen. It's going to say, hey, class is selected, play a little sound, and then go back to the user profile experience. Let's see if we did that correctly. I hit save. All right, so let's say I want to be a warrior. I hit choose this class. Look at that. And now you'll see that if I go to my data screen here, my class now says warrior. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to do just select a class. Let's scroll through and be a hunter. Choose this class. Boom, now you see I'm a hunter. All right, select a class. Let's be a mage or a healer. Look at that, healer. Awesome. All right, and the last thing here is once they've selected a class, maybe then they can complete their profile. So to do that, we just have to add another button to complete our profile. So in the screen view, button, boom, and we can call this whatever we want, maybe complete profile. And we want to distinguish it from the select a class button, right? Couple ways to do that. We can change the look of the select a class button to be a little bit more muted, so that way the complete profile button stands out. We can add an icon to the complete profile button, maybe a check, like so. Or you can make it a floating action button. So it looks like that at the bottom. So this button will only appear once these things have happened. That's certainly possible as well. I kind of like to look at the floating action button. It kind of just hovers down there. Looks kind of nice. And the check lets you know that you're done, right? All right, for this, we need to create an action. And again, we're going to use a set column action because what we want to do is write a timestamp to our profile completed on column, this one right here, whenever the profile has been completed, right? So to do that, we're going to go ahead and select our button. The action will be set columns. And here, besides just the profile completed on, we should also set a few more things here. So in our data, there's a couple more columns that we forgot when we set up our sheet. We need to set our default experience as being 0 and our default gold to be 0. So we need to create 2 more columns here. These are going to be number columns. I can do so right through here, through the Google Sheet, or through the data screen. I'll just do it here since I'm already viewing this screen here. So I'm going to do the plus button, number column, XP, precision 1, done. And then we'll do another one, number column for gold, or whatever your in-app currency is going to be. Precision 1, done. All right, you see I have 2 new columns now. And so what we want to do is when they push that button, we're going to set XP to 0, gold to 0, and the profile completed on will be the timestamp when they completed their profile. All right, let's go ahead and select our button. All right, set columns. Here we're going to have XP be set to 0, gold set to 0. I'm just going to give them some bonus gold. You can give them, 10 gold to start off with. Maybe let's give them 10 gold to start off with. Why not? And then their profile completed on, we'll click the triple dots and choose the current date and time. All right, so when I push this button, we should see those 3 fields being filled out. I'm going to do that in just a moment. Okay, now when they push this button, we also want to hide our onboarding experience. So we need to create a condition for this button. We also don't want to show this button until they've filled out all 3 items, the class, the photo, and the username. So we need to set a condition on this button. So I'm going to go to screen, pick my floating button, and under options, set a visibility condition. And this visibility condition will only show the button when the username is not empty, when the profile picture is not empty, and when the class is not empty. Oh, also when the count usernames is less than 2. In case I pick a username that already exists, you see I get the message, but then also the button goes away and I can't pick that username. Okay, if I don't fill out the field at all, I don't see the button to complete. All right, if I don't pick a class, so if I get rid of my class here, you see the button doesn't show up here. So I have to select a class, I'll be a healer, okay, and now the complete button shows up. Good, all right, so that's working. All right, the last thing here is, again, to set the tab visibility. So we only want this onboarding tab to appear when they haven't yet completed their profile. And the way we know that a profile has been completed is when there's a timestamp in this profile completed on field here. So in this tab, if I click on Welcome at the top here, I can go to Options, and you see there's a visibility condition for the tab. I'm going to select Add Condition, and I'm only going to show this tab when Profile Completed On is empty, like so. Okay, when Profile Completed On is not empty, then I can show everything else for a later video. All right, so we have tab visibility set up, we have button visibility set up, and then you just kind of customize this onboarding experience. So maybe you want to have a banner at top, right? So I can just drag and drop an image right on top, and after a few seconds, you'll see that it loads as a banner at the top of the screen. Really big, so maybe I want to make it a 3:1, like that. Cool. Style edge to edge, or even insert, make it even smaller. That works. You can also play around with the colors a bit, right? So here I have my appearance just being this blue color, but I'm actually going to use a Chrome extension to pick exactly the color I want. Maybe I want this like this real bright blue of my logo. Cool. So now I come back over here and I can paste the hex color of my blue. So now everything matches. You can also, under the appearance, choose what theme you like. So you have a light, you have pure, you have bold. I kind of like the bold. You can choose what font you want. I like modern. It's completely up to you. Okay, that looks like a nice welcome screen. All right, let's test this out. So when I push this button, these 3 fields should be filled out, and this welcome tab should go away. Let's take a look. Hey, look at that. So XP was 0, gold is now 10, and the profile completed on is now showing a timestamp. And because profile completed on is no longer empty, you see that screen was hidden. Okay, I want to talk real quickly about this, what you're seeing in front of you here, because you're going to see this quite a bit now that Glide's new builder has been released. Okay, your users in the published version of the app will not see what we're seeing right here, where it says this screen's visibility condition is false, right? This is always for us, the app builder, so that way we can preview any screen that would be hidden, or we can hide it as though we are a user viewing the app here. Okay, what's nice about previewing anyway is then that way we can still make edits to the screen and it won't be hidden from us, the app builder. But if you want to see what actually would take place, I would just hit hide screen, right? And this is the resulting user profile screen that would be visible once the user profiles have been set up. So this users tab at the top here will be our user profile screen. And again, we'd only want this to show up when the user profile completed on column is filled out, right? So I'm going to click on users. I'm going to go to options and set a visibility condition for this tab to only show when profile completed on is not empty, right? And this user profile screen should be filtered where the user is the signed in user. So very important, go to filter, add filter where email is the signed in user. All right, if you want to test this again, we can simply delete the timestamp in the profile completed on section. Okay, so this is the screen we'll see when we first sign into the app. When they hit the checkbox, that screen will be hidden, and instead they'll see their user profile screen. All right, the only thing we haven't yet created is just a visualization of the class that they selected back on the welcome screen. Right, so here they were able to select a class, choose it, and they get this little notification that a class was selected, but there's no visualization or confirmation of that back on the welcome screen. So to do that, all we need is just 2 columns, a relation column from the user sheet back to the classes in order to grab the class image. So we're going to go to our data editor, and here in our user sheet, add a column. It's going to be a relation column and we'll call this rel class, where we're going to relate the class name that they picked to the class name in the classes sheet. Okay, you see that it found a match here. And now I can pull in the image. This will be a lookup column, and I'll name it class image. The configuration will be the rel class image, done. And now we can use this class name that they picked along with the class image and display that in our welcome screen. So I'm going to choose welcome. Maybe we'll display it in a basic table, kind of keep it easy, right? So we'll do basic table. The rightmost column will be the image, and the leftmost column will be the class name that they picked, just like so. We'll add this right above our button. Perfect. All right, so everything still kind of fits without things overlapping. That looks great. All right, so stay tuned to episode 2 where we'll configure this user profile screen and add a few more details such as their gold balance, their XP balance, and then show you how they can select a guild right from their user profile. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Find me at Twitter @rpetito, and as always, thanks for watching.